Hello and welcome to this episode of Q&A with Q. I'm Quisha, a member, nurse entrepreneur, and public health consultant, and I help public health leaders, helping professionals and emerging entrepreneurs to monetize their skill set to level up in their career or start and launch service-based businesses. Now, if you've been following me for any amount of time, then you know I recently left a six-figure job that I loved and transition into full-time entrepreneurship, which I love even more. And to secure the transition of my leaving work full-time and going into entrepreneurship, I pitched my consulting services to my former employer, and now I get paid a very good hourly wage to do the exact same things that I did when I worked for them. In this episode of Q&A with Q, I'm answering the question, how to make my employer a paying client. More to come, so stay tuned. Now, before I get into answering your question, how to make your employer a paying client, I've got a few questions for you to ponder on. Are you thinking about taking the leap from corporate life to creative life? Have you been considering what it looks like if you leave the security of your government gig for the uncertainty, and there's a lot of uncertainty, with full-time entrepreneurship? If you have been thinking about this, are you quitting your job in the next 3 to 18 months? Because now is the perfect time to plan an exit strategy. So that's my next question. Do you have an exit strategy? And does your exit strategy include turning your current employer into a paying client? Well, if it does not, it should. And I don't think I need to tell you why. Instead, in this video, I'm going to tell you how to do it, because I promise you it will make your transition a lot smoother, and it will also lessen the anxiety when you transition away from the comfort and consistency of a paycheck every 2 weeks. I recently hosted a free webinar, How to Make Your Employer a Paying Client. And in the webinar, I shared 10 ways to make yourself irreplaceable. So when you do leave your job, on good terms, mind you, you can pitch your solutions and services and secure a client for your newly established business. Now, in this video, I'm going to share with you 5 of those 10 ways to make yourself irreplaceable so you can make an offer your employer can't refuse. Now, in full transparency, I will be honest, there is nothing special about these tips, but they are indeed the exact steps that I took before pitching my former employer for my consulting services that I currently charge $250 an hour for. You heard me right, $250 an hour, and I'm not even a lawyer. Go figure. Now, before I get into these 5 steps, I also want to give you a disclaimer. None of these, and I mean none of these strategies will work if you hate your current job and you hate your employer. In fact, the strategies will only work if you love what you do, you love where you work, you love the organization where you're currently employed. So you see, when I left my job, there were 3 things that I knew were for certain. I was leaving a job that I loved, the organization was losing a valuable employee, and hiring me as a contractor only made sense because it was a win-win for both parties. With that said, let's get into these 5 tips right now. Tip number 1, keep your job and your business separate. Now, I was very transparent. When I left my former employer because of my business, I knew that my next employer would hire me even with my business. So my business was on my resume, it was on my cover letter, it was on my LinkedIn page, all of the above. And so I was asked several times by my employer, are you going to be able to do this job and run your company? If so, tell us how. And I explained this in 3 of the 4 interviews that I went on to get the position. However, I maintained consummate professionalism. When I did get the job, I kept the job and my business separate. In fact, I would go to meetings and be introduced as, hi, this is Quisha, member. She's our new clinical programs training specialist. She even owns her own business. And I would never make a comment about my business. I did not want my employer to feel threatened by my business, by the success of my business, and the growth and scale of my business. I didn't want them to have any worry that I might potentially leave them one day to go and work in my business. So always make sure you keep your job and your business completely separate. Maintain professionalism at all times. Tip number 2 is key. Become the go-to person when it comes to fill in the blank. Whatever that is, volunteer to do jobs that nobody wants to do. Go above and beyond. Become the subject matter expert in something. Chances are you probably already are, but really tap into that so that whenever that topic, wherever that issue is top of mind, whenever it pops up into somebody's head, they automatically see you, they email you, they call you, they come to you. You're known as the organizational expert. Become the expert in whatever that topic is and own it. Tip number 3, secure your organizational champion or advocate. This is so important. Even in my consulting business, I usually have an organizational champion or advocate that's really pulling for me to get the contract to do the business. So make sure that you have an organizational advocate before you begin your exit strategy, begin to leave the organization, and certainly before you pitch your offer. This person is going to go to bat for you. So when you get ready to pitch them for $200, $250, or $300 an hour, like I did, they're the ones that are going to say, she's worth this. We need her. We can't go without, whatever skill or expertise, whatever task and roles you played in the organization. So make sure you develop those partnerships, you develop those relationships. You make sure you keep contact with people even after you leave if you're still in the negotiation period or if you haven't pitched them yet. Because sometimes, let's be honest, you want to wait until you leave, until you get a little experience under your belt, until you can get some reviews and testimonials, and then you may go back to the organization to pitch your services. Make sure you maintain consistent communication with your organizational champion or advocate so that they can go to bat for you. Here's tip number 4. Do your research. Before pitching to your boss or your organization, find out your company's policy on freelancers and subcontractors. I did just this. I knew someone that had recently left a full-time position, but stayed on for several months in a freelance position. And I called her rather, and I inquired about her experience. Did they approach you? Did you approach them? Did they ask you for a salary or a dollar amount? Did you give them an hourly amount? And she informed me that they asked her to stay on as a freelancer, and they said, name your price. That's all I needed to know. So do your research, find out the policies, find out if it's something that's been done before, but don't be discouraged if it hasn't been done before. It doesn't mean that you can't be the first person to do it because you are the trendsetter. So here's your 5th and final tip on how to make your employer a paying client. Leave on good terms, give an adequate notice, a little bit more than 2 weeks if you can. I've even given up to 3 months before, but with my last employer, I gave them a 6-week notice. They knew I had another job, right? Everybody was really elated for me that I had the opportunity of a lifetime to go and work full-time in a business, making impact, doing what I love, and that's serving those that serve others. But the kicker is you have to pitch your offer. They're not going to always come to you. You've got to make it known that you're available to work for them in a reduced capacity on certain projects, especially projects where you've already established yourself to be the go-to in the organization. As a matter of fact, when I pitch my services in my letter of resignation. So leave on good terms, give a good notice, and make them an offer that they can't refuse. So here's a 2-for-1 bonus. Another question that I normally get is, Quisha, how is it working for your company as a freelancer as opposed to a consultant? It's great. I mean, I work less, I make more money, I set my own schedule. So that means freedom and flexibility, two of the main reasons that I decided to be a full-time entrepreneur in the first place. I monetize my skill set and the years of education and experience that I have under my belt. So I put my degree to work for me. And honestly, if I'm being completely honest, I think I actually do better work as a consultant than I did when I worked there as a full-time employee, because now my business reputation is on the line. And that's how I feed my family, how I make my money. And so that's very, very important to me. But I did have good experiences with this organization, both as an employee and also as a freelance consultant. So for me, it's been a win-win all the way around. Now, if you're considering taking the leap, but looking for ways to ensure a smoother transition from employee to CEO, I invite you to watch my webinar replay where I teach you how to make your employer a paying client. It is free, and you can find the link below this video. Now, I'm also available to help you if you would like to develop an exit strategy. Just schedule the free discovery session to find out more information about that. As always, I'm looking forward to continuing to share my expertise, my lessons learned, and I'm looking forward to answering more of your questions. Just consider me an open book. And lastly, remember, if you don't build your dreams, someone will hire you to build theirs. It's time for you to stop dreaming and start doing. I'll see you in the next video.